What's up, music fans of the internet? I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
Together, we're last week's album. We're bringing you the only reviews with two different views. And in this special edition episode, we're talking about our favorite debut albums of 2016. After going through the debut albums we've reviewed this year, we've honed the list down into our favorites. And without further ado, cheers, Kevin, and everyone at home.
Cheers, Derek, and everyone at home. Number one on my list, that's in no particular order, is Big Thief with Masterpiece. Big Thief is a Brooklyn-based quartet. Masterpiece is obviously their debut album, and they sort of bring in folk rock sounds and really engaging lyrics. When we reviewed it originally, we compared it to Courtney Barnett, those darlings of Monsters and Men, Sharon Van Etten, and Band of Horses. We really enjoyed the lead singer Adrian Lenker's vocals. They're both dusty and lilting and a little bit of country twang to it. Not something you expect out of Brooklyn, but really nice altogether. And very vivid yet efficient, amazing stories they tell that are both introspective and observant. There's a lot of sort of character studies, songs named after people like Paul and others. Overall, just a really, really strong debut and a really great sound to these guys. So I'm excited to see what they do next.
Well, first on my list, again in no particular order, is Hockey Dad and their album Boronia. They're an Australian-based surf punk rock group. We compared them to Band of Horses, Young Buffalo, Waves, and Rooney. Highlights to us were really the joyful, breezy vibe. It feels and sounds very positive without being cheesy. Even some of the darker tracks don't get bogged down. We were really struck by the sharp production, especially for a debut. And another thing that we found interesting was the fact that the tracks really focused on the songs themselves. There really weren't a lot of extraneous solos or anything like that. Overall, I really dug the vibe of these guys. Go check out Hockey Dad. Look for more slap shots in years to come.
Next on my list is Blue Heeler with their self-titled debut. This is an Austin trio that I have really enjoyed this year. They're sort of synth rock. We heard sounds of Phil Collins, Peter Frampton, My Morning Jacket, Glass Animals, Snow Patrol, and Bahamas, to name a few. Some really strong synth work on this album. Their overall sound is also a really unique mix of organic and synthetic. They've got a stand-up bass matched against synth, piano, and then drums backing it all. So really interesting sound they create. And it's a fun record. They're not trying too hard with some big concept for the album. It's just solid tracks and upbeat vibes from start to finish. Definitely check out Blue Heeler's new album, Blue Heeler.
Next on my list is The Last Days of Oakland by Fantastic Negrito. Kevin and I actually saw Fantastic Negrito playing the NPR Tiny Desk concert at South by Southwest a couple years ago. Put on an absolutely inspiring performance. He really blends a fantastic mix of blues, soul, roots, gospel, and rock. We compared Fantastic Negrito to Leadbelly, R.L. Burnside, Jack White, The Roots, James Brown, and Bad Brains. Obviously, the sound, we really enjoyed that. Lots of energy. Even some of the slower numbers still had incredible depth to them. Lyrically, he was not afraid to address hot button issues and does so in an amazingly expressive way. And that really seemed to just jump out beyond the music. He also has a great dynamic where he skillfully adapts in perspectives, and that's often reflected in the music. Overall, having seen him play live, I was looking forward to this album, and I didn't think it disappointed.
Finally on my list, again in no particular order, is Star Parks with Don't Dwell. This is another Austin band in addition to Blue Heeler. These guys made their debut this year with a sort of 60s pop rock sound. We heard bits of the Beatles, Tame Impala, Dr. Dog, Rooney, and Death Cab for Cutie. So if you like any of those, definitely check out Star Parks. Some really strong melodies on this album, both instrumentally and vocally. Some great song arcs from sort of side steps to builds throughout a song. And these guys have a really good knack for the bittersweet, difficult revelations into sugary sweet sounds. And some really deep lyrics here that'll kind of punch you in the gut if you're not paying attention, and maybe if you are. So definitely check out Star Parks with Don't Dwell.
Last, and again, not in any particular order, on my list is Leave Me Alone by Hinds. Hinds is a Spain-based quartet. They're all quite young, and it may have shown itself at times on this album. We compared them to The Strokes, those darlings. The Kinks, Joan Jett and Mac DeMarco. They really kind of had a lo-fi punk rock vibe. One thing that really stood out to us was the unique lyrical phrasing. As I mentioned earlier, they're from Spain, but nearly all their lyrics were in English. Maybe something got lost in translation at time, but if anything, it made for just very unique phrasing. And the lo-fi youthful charm and intriguing use of dual vocals stood out to us. I really enjoyed the high energy and the lo-fi punk-inspired sound. It made Heinz Leave Me Alone one of my favorite debut albums of the year. After this one, I don't think people are going to leave them alone.
Definitely not. I know when they were here for South by, there was a line at every one of their shows.
There you have it. There were our favorite debut albums of 2016. Don't forget to tell us what you thought was your favorite debut albums of the year. And if there were any we may not have reviewed during there, we always like hearing those. So thanks again for joining us here at last week's album. Don't forget to subscribe here on the YouTube or on the podcast. And as always, I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
Cheers, everyone.